Hello, my name is Miku the Cutie, I am a Tearlaments enjoyer, and I just finished the climb to Master 5 with Hollowcore tier. I also played this deck a lot on Season 53, I believe, 1 month after Kultun release. I played it a lot in Hated. People asked me for a guide, so I guess it is time to make one. I do have to be honest and say that this strategy feels unsolved, because it doesn't have a real going second play. You're basically just praying to open Saki hand trap such as Draw or Maxi and hope that that just beats the opponent deck somehow. They didn't open a lot of push. If I had one more extra deck slot, I could play Exiton, and that will change a lot, because people don't really expect you to break their board after they allowed you to have 2 level 4 bodies, which Tier can very easily do. Tier is basically a hunk 4 engine. Unfortunately, I don't have the extra deck space for this, so until then, this deck has a very weak going second. If you want my recommendation on what I believe would be the best way to play Tearlaments competitively, it would be Tearlaments Snake Eye Hollback pile, which I have a few videos and VODs playing it, so it would be something like this. Even this season I climbed to Diamond 2 with this on stream, with pretty good win rate on the 2 sessions I did. But funny enough, I tried to finish the climb off stream on Kultun of all things. Instead I dehunked to Diamond 5, and then I managed to climb from there to M5 with the Hollowcore deck, which is what we're going to be talking about today. The concept for this variant starts with Nepyrim. Nepyrim is unofficially a Tearlament card, one of the better Tearlament cards. She has very powerful effects. When she is summoned, she can search you a Fairy, she can search you an Aqua, she can search you other Gem Knight cards, I guess, she can throw out a Hunk 4, she can go into Fiendsmith, and if she goes to the graveyard, she can summon herself by discarding a card from hand for effect. You can basically use her with, for example, drop wet since for cost. You send Nepyrim for cost, and she's going to convert that into sending another card from hand for effect, triggering, for example, if it's a Tearlament card, it's going to trigger its effect in the graveyard. So what if we made Nepyrim even better? And that's where the Hollowcore package comes in. I'll go over more detail later on the video, but for a brief summary of what the package does, you are turning it and Nepyrim hits the board. You are now threatening 1 Omni Negate. You are going to be printing extra bodies. You can recycle banished monsters from banishment, such as Tearlament names. And finally, you have infinite discard fuel for a Baoku. The Hollowcore package is composed of 1 or 2 Gem Knight Hollowcore, 1 or 2 Gem Knight Dispersion, 1 Gem Knight Fusion, 0 or 1 Gem Knight Sapphire, and as for the extra deck, we have 1 Phantom Quartz and your choice of either Lady Rose Diamond or Gem Knight Seraph Knight. When piloting any Tearlament list, matches are highly non-linear and you should always be thinking how to adapt to the game state. However, a very common line you're going to be doing with this once Nepyrim hits the board is going to be adding Hollowcore. Hollowcore sends Gem Knight Fusion to summon itself, link both into Phantom Quartz, adding Gem Knight Dispersion. Since Gem Knight Fusion is in the graveyard, we can activate the first effect of Dispersion, which is something we're all too familiar with by now. Fusion summon by sending materials from deck to graveyard, specifically Gem Knight monsters as materials. With this, we summon either Seraph Knight or Lady Rose, whichever you're running, and we want to try to keep them as an Endboard piece, as they are essentially enabling the Omni Negate from Hollowcore graveyard effect. From here, if needed, you can still extend using Phantom Quartz Ignition effect to print another body and bridge into Fiendsmith with it under the installation of Hollowcore Negate, but usually you just extend with whatever other resources you have available, be it the cards in your hand or anything else. With the main line out of the way, I can now give more in-depth comments on each card. Hollowcore is the card the package is named after. It's a Dark Fiend whose effect to summon itself comes with a beneficial cost of sending Gem Knight Fusion or an Aqua from deck to graveyard. You can play it at 1, but with all the testing I did, I ended up liking 2 copies of it a lot. which allows you to use his negate on 2 different turns in the same match without an extreme win each scenario. However, if you're playing more than one copy, I recommend to be very careful with Cowboy. If you're in a situation where you really need his negate to resolve, and there is a chance opponent has Cowboy, don't let them have that opportunity. Just banish every copy of Hollowcore when using the negate, or have your finger ready to fire Fairy Snow or a Shuffler, or maybe even Bow Bow in order to dodge the Cowboy. Dispersion is a card I really wanted to run more than one copy, but since it does nothing on mill and I do want to keep the deck at 40 cards with some room for non-engine, it did not make the cut. So Dispersion has 2 effects. The second effect is a Searcher for Gem Knight cards, basically an extra copy of Nepyrim, but that's already a very good effect, but it's not what we want to use it for. We want to use it for the first effect, which is basically branded fusion, and by that I mean it fusion summons by sending materials from deck to graveyard. It sets up a lot of things since the deck gets cards in rotation for whatever you want to use them for, such as fodder for the Hollowcore negate, or previously when we still had more than one copy of Orange White, the deck used to use this card to set up a lot of Nepyrims in the graveyard that we could banish with Eva to search more heralds. Gem Knight Fusion is the brick that comes with this package. It is a pretty low quality card to open. That being said, this can still unbrick your hand in niche scenarios, because it lets you send Tearlaments monsters from hand or field to the graveyard, or Nepyrim, for example, to the graveyard, triggering her effect. So, for example, if you use this to hard make Amethyst, then you will get a lot of plays going out of it. And you can infinitely recycle it from the graveyard, which means that you have infinite discards for a Baoku. But you can also threaten a lot of pushes with this if you're in a situation where resolving it unbricks you. But ultimately the main purpose of this card is to enable the activation condition for the first effect of Dispersion. Gem Knight Sapphire might look like a brick, but it's actually just replacing another brick in the deck. It's technically optional, but I highly recommend it. It was one of the funniest and strongest buffs to Hollowcore tier when I found it. So the standard Brilliant Fusion package would be something like 3 Brilliant Fusion, 3 Nepyrim, 1 Quartz or Iolite, and that Quartz or Iolite is what this Sapphire is going to replace. But basically his purpose is that when you summon Hollowcore from your hand, you need to send 1 Gem Knight Fusion or 1 vanilla Gem Knight from deck to graveyard. And without the Sapphire, I will often have situations where Gem Knight Fusion comes into rotation early. I need to do really weird lines in order to find the way to get the Hollowcore in the graveyard, the Gem Knight Fusion on the graveyard, and be able to conveniently activate the first effect of Gem Knight Dispersion. Now, after adding the Sapphire, I basically didn't affect any of the ratios in my deck, and now Gem Knight Hollowcore being stuck to my hand and me having to do weird lines never happened again. So this card is optional, but I highly recommend it. And I was already on Iolite before finding the Sapphire, so nothing really changed because using Iolite Gemini Summon to go into Moon basically never comes up. I played for like a whole month with it and it came up maybe once. So yeah, Gem Knight Sapphire, good card, funny buffs to the deck, I approve. Gem Knight Phantom Quartz primary function is going to be to search the Dispersion on summon, but its ignition effect to pay 1000 life points in order to fusion summon by shuffling materials from graveyard or banishment also does come up. So it comes up if you need just one more body to extend your play, or if your other methods to reach a Gem Knight Fusion monster were denied, still have this option, and you do need a Gem Knight Fusion monster on the field in order to fulfill the activation condition of Hollowcore negate in the graveyard. Or the final reason can be you really need to recycle a Banished monster. It can be a Tearlaments monster, maybe a Finsmith monster, can be anything that fulfills the materials for Gem Knight's summon. Finally, we have our choice of Seraphonite or Vedic Host Diamond. And you're only going to be playing one. Your choice is going to be based on personal preference, the current format, or the other cards in your deck list, or what your deck list is trying to achieve. I've been playing Seraphonite basically ever since Orange-White was limited. And one of the things that this choice affects is which monsters can you send to graveyard, basically Foolish Burial, if you use Brilliant Fusion to make one of these monsters. So Seraphonite uses a white monster as material. That means it can send one Engraver, one Fairy Snow, things like that. While Vedic Host Diamond sends one Fairy, which means it could send one Diviner, one Shuffler, one Eva, for example. One Medius right now is a card that people have been experimenting with on tier. And the other things that are going to affect the choice are the effects on field of this card. So Seraphonite gives you one extra normal summon, which means your deck is going to have more push. And that's about it, pretty simple effect, I guess. While Vedic Host becomes a detonator during your own turn. And this was a very powerful effect, for example, during Vanquish Soul K9 format, where you would frequently have monsters summoned into the opponent board during your turn, and you could just detonate them away if you were playing Vedic Host. But for other cards that are not a part of the package but synergize with it enough that I want to talk about, we can start with Eva, Orange White and Green White and Diviner. I am not using these cards anymore ever since Orange White got limited to 1. Orange White is the best card by far out of those. But basically, initially the concept of the deck was that by going through the Vine with Nepyrim, on top of the Omni Negate, you also fill your graveyard with a lot of copies of Nepyrim, which you can then banish forever to add the Heralds. But I don't think that's really worth to do anymore, so let's cut them. Other cards I have, as I mentioned, are Foolish Burial and Vingolf. Those are just extra copies of Nepyrim, and Nepyrim is quite strong in the deck with the package, so there's not much more to mention, it's just extra copies of Nepyrim. Vingolf is basically a Tearlament card, it has a good effect in hand, good effect in the graveyard. And then in the extra deck, I have WP and a Bow. So Bow has infinite cards. One of the problems in Tearlament that people usually find is running out of cards to discard. The package solves that because you just infinitely recycle the Gem Knight Fusion. And the other card I am using is WP, so one of my favorite things to do in tier is using Snow and IP to go into SP. WP is essentially doing that job, except she can use a Link monster as material, such as Finsmith Sequence. And when you're running a Bow, you can also summon WP on the opponent turn from the graveyard, and then make use of the negate too. Bow is actually one of my favorite cards, and one of the reasons I put so much effort into solving this deck. And it's funny that Konami keeps killing all the justifications I have to play her on Tearlaments, so they killed Apollos, which was a good hit. I've been an apologist, but deep down I know it's a good hit. Then they killed Chrissy, which I also really wanted Chrissy to be killed, and thankfully they did kill her. And then they killed Orange White, but hey, I guess I kept finding a way, because she's just a card that has a lot of utility in general. Really, one of her strengths is how much wide utility she can provide between the Graveyard Reborn and the non-targeting pop. She also helps in the grind game by hiding herself, coming back in the end phase, then Cheat Engine custom editing your hand. Graveyard Reborn can be useful in order to, for example, maybe dodge a call by, maybe bring back a tier name that you can then send with Hollowcore or a trap. Maybe bringing back Kid Cavus in a game state where you are unable to make the Kawaii or Hulk on the previous turn. Now that we know the cards that I am using, the next question is, what endboard am I looking for? And the first comment to say about that is that it's a Tearlament deck. There's going to be a lot of variance in the endboard, but you do rather consistently get the most important pieces on this deck. And the first one is going to be Hollowcore. Usually Hollowcore, sometimes Kawaii, depends on how the match went, but it's almost always Hollowcore, and that actually helps you get into the other one, because you just use Hollowcore's effect, send another tier name to go into Cavallo on the opening turn. Then the second is going to be Hollowcore in the graveyard with a Gem Knight Fusion monster on the field. That's basically one Omni negate. Then the third piece we want is about Q. She can be used for a lot of different things, such as the pop or bringing a monster from graveyard to the field. Usually what you have to keep in mind is that she can bring a tier name for Hollowcore or a trap to send, or she can bring WP for her negate or just linking into SP in case you couldn't end the turn with her on the field. Then we want a Gem Knight Fusion on rotation in order to have infinite discard for About Q. Then we want WP to go into SP on the opponent turn, or if you can summon her with a bow, ideally. Then you have the negate plus banish. Then we want Fairy Snow in the graveyard, including a lot of fodder for her summons. And like I said before, one of my favorite plays in tier is just using Snow and IP or WP to go into SP. Basically, you get one Book of Moon when you summon Snow. Then you get one banish when you go into SP. Then you can summon Snow again for another Book of Moon, and SP is going to have her quick effect banish. So basically with 2 cards you have 4 points of interaction. These cards I mentioned you can rather consistently get, but then we're going to have, or want to have, as much tier backrow on our board as possible. So with the current list I'm using, that would mean Scream, Metanoid, Subiac, maybe Known, maybe Out3, depends on how the match went, how lucky you were. Then potentially we can still have the Kashtira of Fenrir and the draw in hand. So for example, you thin a lot of cards out of your deck and then you go Dugares draw 2. There's a reasonable chance that you can find the draw, keep it in hand as an endboard piece for the opponent turn. And that's enough to FTK quite a few decks that are popular at the moment, such as Sky Striker. And that's the endboard. It's actually very strong. It's, I would say, one of the strengths of the deck. I was even coaching my friend on the previous month, playing Hollowcore tier on Duelist Cup, and I would be surprised counting the number of interactions the deck puts up. It's basically an unbreakable board. If you found this guide useful and want to see more of my content or help me, I would really appreciate if you like and subscribe. And occasionally I stream on twitchtv.com/microacuity. I usually play Master Duel or Tekken. And yep, bye bye.